I'm on my way to my Father, but I will return.
Now let us return to analyzing this Quranic verse. Now this verse concerning Joseph alludes to the crucifixion of the Messiah. Again, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan at the hands of the Synagogue of Satan in the aftermath that ensues after his crucifixion. As such, it indicates that the attack on the Honorable Louis Farrakhan is expected to be so epic that black people will ultimately come to understand what the Honorable Louis Farrakhan has meant to us, especially after he is taken from among us. Now, the effort to redeem humanity from gross darkness and suffering caused by the satanic rulers of this world requires the Messiah to endure intense agony. This is why he is called the suffering servant by biblical scholars. It states in the book of Isaiah regarding the Messiah, again, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, it states, "Who hath believed our report, and to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed?" Now let us consider this point from a scholarly 2-volume study of the 4 Gospels. It states, "Understandably, there's a desire to know what Jesus himself said, thought, and did in the final hours of his life. Yet Jesus did not write an account of his passion, nor did anyone who had been present write an eyewitness account. Available to us are 4 different accounts, written some 30 to 70 years later in the Gospels of Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John, all of which were dependent on tradition that had come down from an intervening generation or generations. Nevertheless, let us consider the following from one of these scholarly writings. It states, "The Messiah myth has much to say about the condition of the world and of the Jews." I put in parentheses, children of Israel. "In it, which must obtain before the Messiah can come." Now, this author explains that his use of the term myth applies to the sense of a story possessed of a deeper inner truth for those who believe in it. So it's not like a fairy tale. That's how he's using the word myth. Let's continue. "Sufferings, evils, horrors are the main themes whose somber colors must fill the global canvas before the messianic ray of light can illuminate it. Much speculation is devoted even to his forerunner, the prophet Elijah. When will he come? How will he appear? What will he do? How will he announce the coming of King Messiah? These are momentous questions to which much attention is given by the Messianologists. Now, today, these questions are answered in the history of the enslaved black people of the Western Hemisphere, which includes the history of the lost found nation of Islam. For example, Elijah, being the forerunner of the Messiah in its fulfillment today, relates to why the Supreme Being, Master Fard Muhammad, maintained the name Elijah, only changing Elijah Poole's last name to Karriem and then to Muhammad. But he kept the name Elijah upon him. In addition, it could be argued that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad introduced the Messiah during his 1972 Theology of Time lecture series, when he set the Honorable Louis Farrakhan in his seat and told the world to listen to him and to follow his advice. Now, in light of this, what is the basis of our fundamental response to the Messiah's presence and work? Again, we're referring to the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. what is the basis of our fundamental response? Well, in the book of Psalms, the Messiah is prophesied to state, "Then said I, lo, I come. In the volume of the book, it is written of me." Now, this declaration makes sense given that the Torah and the Old Testament contain prophecies in the form of narratives describing the coming of God in the last days to establish his eternal kingdom. What we get in the various narratives are just different types of storylines that connect to one central storyline, the coming of God and the raising of his Messiah. Whether we're reading from the book of Isaiah, the book of Hosea, the book of Ezekiel, the Exodus, all of that relates to the same theme, which is the coming of God to redeem his people after they were put in bondage. Now, of course, when we look at these narratives, some of them are very controversial, some of the scenes, particularly those that describe the Messiah's domestic life. For example, in the Holy Quran, it states regarding the narrative of Joseph in Surah 12 or chapter 12. "Verily in Joseph, in his brethren, there are signs for the inquirers." Well, that seems unusual. Why would Allah declare that there's signs for us or for those who inquire in the narrative of Joseph and his brothers? The Quranic and Biblical narrative of Joseph emphatically shows that the character Joseph serves as a sign of the Messiah's life. Therefore, we can expect some of the scenes described in the narrative of Joseph to be experienced in the life of the Messiah, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. And this goes for Lot, for Noah, for Moses, for David, for Solomon. Well, we cannot sufficiently understand the Honorable Louis Farrakhan's words and actions unless we have a sound understanding of the Holy Quran, because his words and actions are born of the Holy Quran, meaning arise from the Holy Quran. Therefore, one's ignorance of the Holy Quran makes it difficult for that person to sustain his or her belief against the Synagogue of Satan's attack on the Honorable Louis Farrakhan and on the theology of the Nation of Islam. Now, if the duty of the messenger of God, in this case the Messiah, is to deliver the divine message of Allah clearly, then why did the Honorable Louis Farrakhan organize the registered membership of the Lost Found Nation of Islam into mosque, regions, and councils, namely the Executive Council, National Executive Council of the Nation of Islam? Is the Honorable Louis Farrakhan beholden to the Executive Council? Or is the Executive Council beholden to the Honorable Louis Farrakhan? Well, let's consider this question first.